On doing this, I was actually planning on going to bed because I've been at work for, well, officially 12 hours, but it feels more like 13 hours because, you know, travel time and all that. Basically, this is slightly a response to a YouTuber that I follow called Tonkasaw and a very nice girl called Vamp Candy. What am I doing? Archangels. Right. Haha. Sorry, I'm getting slightly distracted. Finish doing this and then. Right. Yeah, basically we were having a conversation about Alex Jones, and I'm not a huge fan of Alex Jones, mainly because I think he says things that are really beyond the pale.
Wish I had no use for the likes of you, but as you
Things
see,
that are frankly dangerous. I understand freedom of speech, and I'm fully in respect of freedom of speech because I am a left-leaning libertarian in many ways. So I don't believe in censorship for adults. Censorship for children, definitely, because there's some things that children shouldn't know about till they're at an age where they can properly adjust to it. You know, there were certain horror movies that I actually slightly regretted seeing as a child because, you know, one of the early horrors I saw was Hellraiser 2, and it scared the crap out of me, and it made me feel very sick for quite a while. What we got to do here?
You recall our companion, Saint?
Yeah, and like I said, censorship for children, because a child's mind is very different from an adult's mind. But there should be limits on certain things that certain people say, because like Christopher Hitchens has said, that you know, freedom of speech is great, but as long as you're not sort of shouting fire in a crowded theatre, you know, saying things that are blatantly endangering, it's really stupid. And with the ridiculous overconfidence that Alex Jones has had since sort of being buddies with Donald Trump, there was the whole Pizzagate thing where he actually did endanger people's lives, and he had to apologise, and it was sort of one of those begrudging apologies where he wasn't really, you know, it almost was like he was winking at the camera type apology. It wasn't like, it was a bit like when he admitted that he plays a character. It didn't really seem like he was completely honest in what he was saying, and he hasn't mentioned it since. I think he's sort of hoping that people will forget, mainly because I think he's a con man. I don't believe that he has any genuine credentials when it comes to reporting. You know, I class him actually in exactly the same league as the Young Turks, in that they're not even really reporting on the news. They're just attention seeking. but he has said things that are really stupidly dangerous, particularly the anti-vax stuff. That it's not. See, the problem is people don't understand about anti-vaccination. It's not really adults and maybe children that I worry about. It's basically pregnant women. So if a pregnant woman has got a baby in her womb and she contracts something like German measles, it can either kill the baby or give the baby some really nasty birth defects that will affect it the rest of its life. But Alex Jones doesn't actually think in those terms. He basically spreads out really dangerous misinformation under the guise that he's being either edgy or he's fighting some Illuminati thing. And I disagree that he should have freedom to just pump out this rubbish, and in a lot of cases it's harmful, nasty rubbish. Yes, attack something like, say, a politician who is corrupt and says and does things that are damaging to society. But if that person's wife or children, they're not part of that. You don't attack someone's wife and children just to score cheap points. And Alex Jones did that really badly with Obama, saying that, you know, Michelle Obama was a man, and really the explanation of why that was a bad thing he wasn't very clear on, which makes me very suspicious that he's probably a bigot against people who are trans. So yeah, I just find pretty much Alex Jones has got way too much power. I think he's actually damaging news. I'm not with Hillary Clinton's obvious attempt to stifle news that was sort of not painting her in a very good light. I'm against that. Like all that rubbish about the Pepe memes. I found a lot of that totally ridiculous. But you can't just sort of say that anyone's family are open for attack. You know, there was some pretty crazy stuff over the years, particularly from the Tea Party, attacking Michelle Obama for really ridiculous things like giving children vegetables at school. You know, really dopey, backfiring things that made them look really stupid. Yes, I personally had problems with Barack Obama because he never actually said it himself, but people around him claimed he was a liberal when he wasn't. I had major problems with that. I had major problems with the drone war and him not sticking to his guns on Guantanamo Bay. But, you know, there were a lot of genuine things that they could have attacked him on. But people like Alex Jones were spreading all sorts of rubbish. At one point, Alex Jones had that lunatic Reverend Manning on his show, and they were claiming that Obama was the Antichrist and that he never stood in front of crosses and things like that. And I'm like, you know, you're no longer you're no longer dealing with actual news. You're dealing with basically an insult against someone, and it's petty and ridiculous, and it's not news anymore. It's basically just blatant slander. So I wasn't trying to upset anyone, because I try my best not to insult and upset people. It's because I'm a bit of a lefty liberal. Well, for a while back last year, I moved more and more to the right, and then all of a sudden I realised how far to the right I'd gone when I was agreeing with Milo Yiannopoulos. And then all of a sudden I realised that I'd sort of, I think it was Carl Sagan said that man is prone to drink the black bile of emotion. That if we're driven by our emotions, it can lead us down dark paths. And I found myself in a mindset that wasn't what I wanted to be. I it's like the wrestling thing. I'm a big fan of wrestling and MMA, but I don't judge people who don't believe in it, who criticise it and all that, because I try to see other people's points of view, and I try to sort of walk in another man's shoes as much as possible. And I think part of the reason why people like Alex Jones thrive is that they're not dealing in reality. They're dealing in a fantasy, and the fantasy feeds people's emotions. Failed there. And that is my biggest problem with Alex Jones. It's my problem with a lot of internet news. TYT do the same, that they prey upon people's sense of disgust. So if you're disgusted by something, then you'll keep watching. But Alex Jones, he is preying on people's suspicion and their fear that they're being tricked, which, no one likes to be made to look like a goon or a goof, especially if you're a man. So unfortunately, I think he's made a lot of money off of people's paranoia, but it's dangerous because not everyone is going to sort of think what he says is sort of just an opinion, that they will treat it like it's real news. And particularly the Pizzagate thing, had that happened in the UK, Alex Jones would lose his broadcasting licence straight away, because it's basically reckless endangerment. He endangered a whole group of people, many of them who had nothing to do with anything to do with the Democrat Party. He basically just did it for attention and to win over his fan base.
beat the drum, huh? No?
You know, so I wasn't trying to argue and be a jerk or anything. I was basically simply stating my opinion that I think that Alex Jones and I'd also include Glenn Beck, because Glenn Beck says things that are frankly ridiculous and dangerous. There was all that stuff about the family planning clinics, and he was sort of pushing the narrative that they're all out to just do abortions all the time, and it was rubbish, because they don't. They do all sorts of things that women need. You know, tests for pancreatic not pancreas. I forgot what it's called. Pancreatic cancer is the thing that killed my dad, so that's why it was sort of it sticks on the edge of my tongue all the time. Oh God, it's cancer of the birth canal, and women are susceptible to it, especially when I think that cervical cancer, that's the one, cervical cancer. They do screenings for cervical cancer at family planning, and they do a lot of very good work, and this malicious lie put out that they're sort of trading in body parts and stem cells. It's utter rubbish, and most of it's been sort of disproven in court. But, you know, there's still an element of the complete nutcases who prescribe to this idea that they're all out to kill babies all the time, and it's twaddle. Must be on a lower level, that last barrel. Bugger. To go back the way I came. So, let's see. There you are. There it is. Right. So basically, I wasn't being argumentative and saying that, you know, I want to stop all freedom of speech, because I don't believe in extremes. I like to keep everything in the centre ground, personally. I was actually talking about this earlier to a conservative councillor who I work with, that the world's a much safer and happier place when people don't go to extremes, because usually extremes only fit a certain group of people, and it can backfire badly on whole sections of a society. You know, the whole thing. Well, what's going on at the moment in America, which I find pretty disgraceful, is the Trump administration are now trying to push new laws to target people who smoke marijuana, to class them, sort of put them in the same bracket as people who take crack cocaine, to increase the numbers of people who will be going to prison, because the prison industrial complex, they call it, is a big money spinner, and but they constantly need more prisoners to keep the thing going. So these prison companies actually have influence over politicians, and they've even been known to buy politicians, which is a pretty common thing. You know, the whole argument of having Trump as president was supposedly to clear out all the corruption. Well, that's how it was sold on, that he was going to drain the swamp and all that. And all of that's really the reverse. He seems to be filling the swamp, making it worse. Mainly because I don't think he wanted to be president. That's been my theory since the start. I think he basically just ran to get Obama because he didn't like Obama, because Obama took the mickey out of him. And he basically, because he's a hot-headed bloke, might explain how, and he basically just did it to sort of troll Obama, but it got so far because the Republican Party have been pretty shit over the years. The problem with them is that they talk big and tough, but once they get into office, they're like the complete opposite. I think the last really sort of effective Republican presidency was probably, I'd say, Eisenhower was the most effective because he was a no bullshit politician. Since then, you've had people like, well, Richard Nixon was sort of trying to run things himself, but he wasn't very good at it, and you know, that's what sort of led to him being involved in stupid moves like Watergate, which is a real shame because he was one of the most liberal presidents. He wanted to put in a national health system. Most of Nixon's problems was basically because he was saddled with the Vietnam War that he really didn't want America involved in. But at the time, America didn't want to appear to be weak in front of the Russians, mainly. But because basically Nixon didn't want another situation like Kennedy had with the Cuban Missile Crisis. Because I quite like Gerald Ford for the sort of positive, upbeat character he was. But really, he was sort of surrounded by advisors and advisors to his advisors. He wasn't. Well, really, he was like the co-pilot that was just got the job because the president left office in disgrace.
Oh, another such miscalculation could be deadly.
Fuck. The one annoying thing about this game that you don't get the explosive spears and rocket launcher thing till much later in the game. And I wish that you had them earlier in the game, just at a weaker rate. Stop! A harpoon out. Let me fix the engine a bit first. Let's see. Have him go there. Ah, better engine. Good, I'll be able to actually outrun the enemy now. Anyway, like I was saying, it wasn't that I was being argumentative, and I quite like Tonkasaur's show. I particularly like his videos on wrestling quite a bit, actually, because you know, I find them quite interesting. I wish he'd do one about Nick Gage from Combat Zone, who I watched a interview with him and I found the whole thing fascinating. That how he smashed his body up so much that he was on loads of painkillers to the point that because he didn't have health insurance, he ended up robbing a bank and then went to prison, which was probably the best thing for him because he got treatment for painkiller addiction. But because I'm quite a fan of most of the indies. I'm not really a fan of the mainstream wrestling because a lot of it I don't really consider as wrestling. I consider it as sort of I find a lot of it very stagey. It's not really open for much originality. Especially since about 2005, most wrestling completely lost its originality. Whoa, what happened there? The scarecrow disappeared. Whoa. That's one of those weird glitches you sometimes get. Look, there's a floating body in space.
Out from Balefire.
I've got to get back on my diet. I've put on a load of weight in the last month.
Too broken and old.
I've just been eating too much fish and chips, really. So when I went to my mum's, all we ate was fish and chips, and my mum was saying, "You put on some weight, you know." I was like, "Well, yeah, because we're eating fish and chips every day." But they live near the ocean, so you know, fish and chips are part of the menu. But I definitely got to get back on the diet. I don't like being fat. I don't mind being a little bit overweight, but when you're fat, you start to sort of, all your clothes sort of look too tight on you, and I did notice my feet have been a little bit sore. I've been getting a little bit more of a corn on my toe from my body weight, so I'm definitely going to have to go back on the diet. But some of it's stress and depression because my company lost their franchise, and you know, I was a bit shell-shocked at first, but now I'm more sort of reconciled with, you know, my job might change for the better. You know, I might be doing less hours for about the same amount of money, which I hope happens. I hope. But fate isn't always on my side, as you can see from my teeth. But you know, I live in hope. How do we get up there then? Oh, I see. So to reiterate, I doubt he's even watching. yeah, I wasn't saying that people are stupid to watch Alex Jones and things like that, and I understand some people just watch it for the comedic element, but I don't think that all he says is he should be saying. Some things, it's a little bit like the whole thing about this stuff with Sargon of Akkad recently with his stream he did about the about Russian Deadpool and that whole thing, you know.
Around here, there's only one.
I think personally people should have well, I think that all men should be gentlemen. Really, I'd like to see things like dueling come back, because people should be polite and kind and nice to each other. That should be the standard thought. People should be thinking, how can I be kind to people, especially if those people are weaker than me or they're less well off. You know, I consider that a merit to people. I know that I'm probably in a minority there. That there's always a percentage of people who would say, I'm not helping so and so and so and so because, you know, reasons. But I don't understand people who are viciously nasty. I've never understood viciousness. I just find rather ridiculous, really. Oh, I've got a little bit of water left, I think.
Keep an eye on the car.
Of course I will. If you have to leave me here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I wouldn't make it into a cult thing, because I have seen those Black Lives Matter people chanting words, because if the word's becoming a chant, then it's not really about what the words are, it's about just sort of being like a sheep and following the herd, which I disagree with. It's one of the reasons why I'm not a Christian, because I found lots of Christianity are very cult-like. Particularly the Baptist Church. I've got real problems with the Baptists. That, like evangelists, they talk a lot of rubbish.
The fuel tank can be unprotected.
They try and tie things together, which just don't go together. Stuff like claiming that science and religion are linked together, and they're not. Science was around about, well, some science was about before Christianity, but the people who wrote the Bible certainly were not scientifically minded. Their beliefs were obviously from a standpoint of spirituality.
It's a triple collector. Water, Saint, water.
He's dead. And for some reason there's a bloke stuck to my car. Yeah, I'll have that.
They're using the skins for leather.
Get some water. A little drinky poos. Tonga did mention that, you know, I do pictures and stuff. Yeah, I do, but I'm never openly malicious. It's always either surreal or silly. I don't believe that people should be sort of violently nasty to each other. You know, one of my Twitter channels, is it channels, whatever, pages, I don't know what the hell the terminology is, has been shadow banned. I don't know for what. My suspicions are that I was taking the mickey out of Sargon of Akkad, and one of his weird cult have probably done it. Because I took the mickey out of him because of his ridiculous stance on the Conservative Party. That he talks about them like they're sort of a liberal option when they're not. Theresa May in particular is a real fervent right-wing conservative. She's not middle ground at all. So I think that's probably why I've been shadow banned, but it is a bit annoying. But fortunately I had a backup account that I was using as a ghost account. But yeah, so we can track what I'm doing. Yeah, I've used my secondary account. Well, actually, it's my third account. I've got 4 accounts, but one of them I've completely lost the password and all that to it when I switched phones, so bollocks to it. But whoa. Whew. You bitch. But like I've said before, I really wish I could get into some of these streams. The only problem is my hours. You know, it's like tomorrow I'm on 11 hours. And it's so tiring. I used to, when I was sort of in my 20s, I could virtually not sleep all night, go to work, being awake for like 48 hours sometimes, and still be completely functional at work. But now I just can't do it. I find I become really forgetful. Well, I am 40, so it's funny, I don't feel 40, whether that's actually how you describe it. I don't feel old at all. I get a few aches and pains, but most of those are from martial arts injuries. They're not from sort of old age. I think part of probably why I'm sort of youthful is I've never been a heavy drinker past my teenage years when your organs do regenerate quick. I've never been a smoker because of my asthma. I did briefly smoke cigars when I was a teenager, but I never really heavily inhaled the stuff. I never really did drugs for very long. I was only taking LSD for like nearly about 3 years. And I didn't take any injectionary drugs. So, you know, it's mostly sort of oral drugs like, what was the one I used to take speed sometimes. And, of course LSD, because I like hallucinogens. There's a car down there I've got to nick, but ooh, no bullet. Must be something up there. This is a submarine I'm walking around on, because like I was saying the other day, the area I'm in was under the ocean, which is quite interesting. I mentioned what I like about this game is the functionality of it, that it's use of already sort of stuff being reused again, which I really like the concept of. Ammo belt's full. Let's see if I can mix. Nope. Yeah, I want to do more streams and sort of chat and things like that, but you know, I just never seem to have the time. Never have the time or the energy. It's like I'd probably be doing streams all the time if I ever won the lottery, because I would have enough money to live a life on. But I just never. Well, I'd be very fat though. If I won the lottery, I'd have to make sure I have a house with a gymnasium, because I worked it out. The amount of calories I burn doing a day's work is what was it? It was something like 3,000 calories I burn up just doing my job, because my job, it's quite a labour intensive job. It's basically, you know, people just assume that cleaning trains is easy, but it's not. It's pretty taxing. I move roughly what was it? It was sell up 4 tons of rubbish a day, and then you've got to be you got to be quick. You got to basically do 8 coaches of train. Yay! Right, head for home base. Where's the base? Jeet. Yeah, I basically I've got quite a physical job, and it hasn't eased over the years. Most people's jobs get easier the longer they're at it, but my job's actually got harder because when I started my train cleaning job, I was part of a team of 5, and that got reduced down to 3, and it's never been that there's been, yes, we'll do it next year, we'll do it the year after, and it's got to a point now where I think they're never going to do it, and the numbers of people who actually use the trains increased, so there's more work each year. The financial crisis, because less people bought cars because they didn't want to be paying all the extras, road tax and all that, they started using the trains more, which made my job even harder. But you know, it goes with the territory. I don't love my job, but I don't hate my job, if that makes any sense. So, some people have jobs that they just detest.
That's off.
But me, I can put up with my job. It's not the worst worst of worlds, my job. It's it can be tiring, and you do meet a lot of very stupid people, but it's not, at least I'm not having to deal with money or company politics, which I've seen with other jobs. I'm definitely not jealous of people who don't have to deal with company politics. Basically, most of my working day I'm on my own, so I don't have a manager saying, you know, what are you doing, you're talking too much, all this shit. I basically have a job where I'm responsible for a lot, but it's just me. So if someone does a fuck up, I'm not having to sort of carry them, because that's the problem with teamwork. I've always found that a team's only as successful as its weakest member. It's part of the reason why I'm not in a rut so much, but it's one of the reasons why I haven't really looked for another job in like nearly 20 years, because I haven't really found any jobs where I'd get the same level of freedom. But
Got the car.
I'd have to deal with people every day who I don't like. I'm not an anti-people person, but I just get some days, particularly when I'm a bit depressed, when I really don't want to be having those conversations that people have to have because they share a space with someone. You know, I'd be about the worst person to be in a prison cell with. I'd probably start fights on purpose to get put in solitary confinement. Because for me, being sort of up close to people all the time can be a little bit, yeah. Actually, my dream job would probably be the first man on Mars. That way I'd be all on my own. Wouldn't have to worry about anything but staying in touch with NASA and growing my hydroponic foods. Because if I went to Mars, it'd definitely be a one-way trip. I doubt I'd be able to get enough money in a GoFundMe to build my own ship to Mars. I wonder if anyone ever does go for that sort of stuff, you know, getting money for a space program, a GoFundMe space program. That'd be quite an undertaking. Still, that's his name, Elon Musk. Which, when I first heard that, I thought, oh, is that some sort of perfume? But he's the bloke who made PayPal, and he's really pro sending people to the outer planets. Also, I'm quite friendly on Twitter with a bloke called Richard Garriott, who has actually been an astronaut. He was a private astronaut, but he's been to the International Space Station a couple of times. And he's a really interesting bloke. I don't know whether I'd make a very good astronaut though, because of my lung problems.
Speak of the one doing all these things.
Having asthma isn't a lot of fun.
Not bad so far.
That's all I can say. Oh, scrap. It's a survey. There's the surveys. Ah, there they are. There's a lot of similarities with this game with supposedly this Conan online game, which I'm really itching to play once it gets released. Because in that you have to set up your base and you have to defend it, and supposedly you can use powerful gods. I'd probably stick with the Sumerian gods though, because Crom doesn't help his people. He's a god that basically believes in an individual's strength. So I'm a massive Conan the Barbarian fan. I even got the Conan game for the PlayStation 2, which wasn't entirely bad. It was just, the problem was it was too short. It could have done with a lot more levels, but it was genuinely fun, and it looked a lot like the Frank Frazetta Conan, and it had lots of sexy women in it, which is a must for a good Conan game. That's the reason why I'm not a fan of the Conan film with that bloke who's going to be playing Aquaman, because it had the action and it had the violence, but it completely was sexless. I like the John Milius Conan because it has all of the elements that the particularly it was more influenced by Frank Frazetta art than it was influenced by
Keep an eye out. No surprises.
Avert your deadly stare, Walker.
Got the name of the writer.
You do not want my hide.
E. Howard novels, because the E. Howard novels, the description made it sound more like sort of pre-Christian Rome than Sumeria.
Or he'll pump them all up with his damn yells.
But it might have just been interpretation.
You feel nimble. There's a
'Cause
dangerous
I remember seeing some of the early Conan novel art, and until Frank Frazetta put it in, it was mostly, it looked like Roman gladiators. It didn't look like long-haired, near animal like characters. One of the weird things though about the Conan series was that Mattel got ownership to make a toy line for Conan the Barbarian, but they hadn't actually seen the script. I thought it was going to be like a kids movie, but it wasn't. The He-Man toy line is actually was like the blueprint for the Conan stuff. That's why Snake Mountain looks a lot like the symbolism for the sets from Conan the Barbarian. It's because it was a toy line. It was, which I found really interesting. I always had a suspicion that it was linked because the scepter that Falsadun uses looked a heck of a lot like the scepter that Skeletor had. But because I didn't own the He-Man toys because my mum was a single parent, she couldn't afford them, and used to make mine out of plasticine. But my half brother, he had all of the He-Man toys. They weren't actually very good, the He-Man toys, because not a lot of their body would move, only the arm joints, hip joints and neck joint. They're a little bit like people have a lot of reverence over the Star Wars Kenner toys, but they weren't very good. I know, because I had quite a lot of Star Wars stuff. Star Wars, particularly Return of the Jedi toys, but they were pretty badly made. You know, they weren't the sort of marvel that everyone seems to get all sort of teary-eyed about. For me, actually, some of the best action figure toys were the G.I. Joe toys, because I got very much into the 1986 G.I. Joe stuff. I had the Mobile Command Center. It was this giant cream plastic thing that would be on like 3 levels, and it was basically like a land equivalent of the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. But yeah, it was good. Good toys. I was like Mainframe was one of my favourites, and Dusty, who was basically like a desert sort of tank, and Snowjob I quite liked as well. I remember that there was one of them that I really liked. It was in the Action Force the movie, and he was sort of, he wore a Hawaiian shirt, but his whole thing, particularly in Action Force the movie, was that if he couldn't get something done with the weapon, he'd use the weapon as a weapon. So, you know, he misfires targeting something, so he gets out the vehicle, goes and gets the rocket off manually and throws it at the target, which I quite liked. I thought it was quite cool. And Law and Order, I had those toys because Law was basically like a sort of Mexican guy. He was like dressed like an MP, not a member of Parliament, a military police, and he had a dog called Order who was could sniff out explosives and stuff. But I quite like the Action Force toys. It's funny because in America they were called G.I. Joe, but in Europe they were called Action Force, and they changed a lot of they called them an international thing instead of saying that they were the American heroes. They were like an international force, which actually made a lot more sense because they did have characters in Action Force G.I. Joe who weren't American. Some of them were British and Canadians and things like that, and a lot of them were like sort of typecast, not typecast, what do they call it, stereo of people, particularly the Japanese people. They're all the Japanese people did kung fu, you know. Like one of the few female ones I had Lady Jane and Jinx, and I was really lucky. I got it at a jumble sale, a Baroness, because I always liked the Baroness because she was quite kinky. But the outfit she wore sort of had a corset thing on it, and it was like very sort of S&M, and it was all sort of black. It's funny, I was I tweeted Roy earlier, and someone said, "Oh, why isn't there one for Lacey?" And I looked up one for Lacey. It was the Baroness. I like Roy and Lacey because they're sort of very funny, and well, as I said before, I'm being bisexual. I like all sorts. I've got no judgments on people's sexuality, whether they're male, female, trans, whatever. It's not the sexuality of a person. It's how they treat other people that I find important. One of the reasons why I left the Baptist church is I found a lot of the people there were basically hypocrites. They would bang on about how they were sort of religious and their religion made them good people, and then they'd say horrible things about people who were gay or people who were bisexual or Muslims, that Muslims were like cockroaches. I heard someone saying. I was like, you know, it's a little bit nasty. I don't think Jesus was teaching anyone who's not one of us you should treat like shit. But I found most of them quite hypocritical. Also, it did make me laugh quite a bit that the Baptist church I went to was run by this bloke who basically had invested a load of money into it, but he hadn't started the church, and there was this little old woman who, I think she was Japanese or something like that, or Korean maybe, and she occasionally, they'd have done a big talk and everyone wanted to bugger off and get a cup of coffee or something on a Sunday morning, and then she'd get behind the microphone and be boring the crap out of everyone talking about stuff, and you could barely hear what she was saying. She's such a small little lady, and everyone would sort of be, oh, well, I said, can't we just, oh no, because she's been with the church for so long. Oh, for fuck's sake. Still, that's part of my problem with all religion, that the inflexibility means that people who are pretty crap stay in positions of office because, well, because of reasons. That they're treated with reverence, not by their actions, but from the position that they've held for so long. And it's yeah. I can understand why religion survived through, tribalism, mainly because people will give reverence to people for practically no reason. I've seen it, and it's moved now from just being religion to politics. Is now dominated by it. I always found it weird how the Republicans get all teary-eyed over people like Ronald Reagan, which I find really weird, because Ronald Reagan was, well, in reality, Ronald Reagan should have gone to prison for high treason. Iran-Contra was really questionable stuff for what he was doing. Oh, fucking hell, I can't get it. That's too fun. Arse. Yeah, got it. Right, how do I get down? Oh, fuck. Couldn't do that. Oh, shit. Shit a bit. What they say about it? A camera puts 10 more pounds on your body. It's funny, I lost a load of weight about 3 years ago, and then I was off work for like nearly 5 months because there was basically I was accused of something I didn't do, and it was basically down to factors that were beyond my control. You know, my dad getting cancer. Well, he didn't get cancer, he had cancer. You know, because you can't get cancers. Cancers are tumours that your body produces because of mutations in the cell wall. But I was off work for like 5 months, and like I was saying earlier about my calorie intake and how much stuff I shift a day, I put on quite a lot of weight. I shifted from I think I was down to 17, I moved up to 22, and then recently I've I've been hovering around 18 stone, which I want to get back down to 16. That's really the weight that I feel most comfortable in. But you know, one of my main vice is food, because I don't smoke and I don't drink. And I try to avoid fatty foods, but sometimes, you know, I can't live on salad. I'd like to, but actually I've been tempted to get hypnosis, because a friend of mine had hypnosis. Well, she's the wife of my best friend, because she was putting on weight when they moved to America, because my mate works in America. He works all over America, because he works for a big drugs firm. They employed him because him being English and being an outsider, they could send him to the different pharmaceutical firms all over the country who are linked with them to basically get rid of staff. It was a pretty lousy job. He's only felt endangered twice, and both times he was in southern states, where people saying, you know, you took our jobs, we're going to kill you, sort of thing, you know, that sort of stuff. But both times it was all sort of threat. But his wife, who was really nice, she's German, and she's sort of about the same shape as me, you know, not she's never going to be skinny, she's always going to be sort of puppy fat type sort of body, but she's put on quite a lot of weight since she was not because she was greedy, but just because the amounts of food served to people, she says it's ridiculous. She said that she was having steak each day and she couldn't eat it all, and she felt a bit sort of being that she's from East Germany, the ethos there when she was a child was, you know, don't be wasteful, don't overeat, don't eat food that you can't finish. And she started putting on the pounds. And then she basically went to see a hypnotist who's basically helped her by it's just hypnotism to eat less, and she's beginning to lose weight again. She's beginning to feel happy again, which is really nice. But my mate says that basically he wishes that there was somewhere where she could practice her pole dancing, because that's where they met. She was a lap dancer who did pole dancing. Well, she was trying to learn to do pole dancing. But you know, the problem is they're all over the country, and they've not wanted to buy a house because he doesn't want to live in America. He basically just works there because he said that America has great things, but it has things that he doesn't want, because he knows he'll lose them if he became a citizen of America, like healthcare. Well, basically he works for a drug firm, and he says that he'd never trust American healthcare. If he got very, very ill, he'd go over the border into Canada. Because how healthcare works in America, everything's ridiculously expensive. It's too expensive for what it is. But, well, he was warned before he went there. He said that, you know, the drug firms, they have health care plans, but he's not a full employee. He's like a contractor employee. Because he was that for years, when he was a chemical engineer.
It's a triple collector! Water, saints! Water!
Yeah, he used to go all over the world. Back before 2008. Well, actually, at the start of 2008, 2007, he had to live with me for like about 3 weeks till his dad came back from the Middle East. Him and his wife. It was really nice because his wife would do all the housework. Because I'm a bit scruffy. I have a tendency to sort of do the washing and then leave the washing in the basket that I've done, and yeah, if I didn't have my job, if I was like a home husband, I'd be really tidy and be vacuuming all day and all that. But you know, when you live on your own and you get used to your own mess, you don't do what you should be doing. You know, my flat's not filthy. There's no like, sort of rotten food or anything, but I'm not neat. Did we get everything here? Mix some fuel. Out of ammo though. That's something else I do like about this game. It's not unlimited amounts of ammo out in the wilderness. And you are really reliant on your car. You can't just walk these levels or you end up getting killed. That dust in the background there is a convoy. But I'm not going to attempt to take on the convoys till I've updated my car quite a bit. Upgraded it. Because at the moment it's still sort of pretty much a standard car. Let's see if we've got any upgrades for it. Garbage. Exhausts, no. Oh, unlock to paint. There we go, I have that. Yeah. Looking good. The hood ornaments. No. You mainly get the hood ornaments from dealing with the convoys. No. Still haven't got enough junk. Let's have a look at the map. Oh, I've got that area almost completely covered. Ah. Want that.
This cheat, he's a wild card. But I dare say your influence has lifted his spirit. What with his constant pain, he'd often hit a wandering pilgrim such as I.
Desolate and dry. Ah, blinding. That's a weird thing that I've never seen in gaming, but I really wish they'd have. Would be glare. That glare would actually affect the eyes of your first person character. But I know they do in games where they use flashbangs, but it's not really the same thing. Still haven't heard anything about a new Splinter Cell game. I hope it's not going to be like the gap between the Duke Nukens where, you know, nothing will get made for like sort of 15 years and then eventually something will come out and it'll be really crap. Because I was really disappointed by Duke Nukem Forever. It had so much going for it, but it wasn't as good as it could have been.
You're up against Drifter. Who you with? Wait the front. Tell the clock out. Get over here.
It's alright, you bitch. There's never enough hours in the day. Nugget firm. Nugget. It's weird how people judge time, isn't it? When I was a kid, a term at school felt like years, mainly because I didn't enjoy school at all. I found a lot of school, I was bullied a lot, and I found a lot of people weren't real. They were sort of all pretense. Particularly kids. A lot of kids would pretend to be pro something. And really, they were the opposite. Especially when it came to race. I was in a year group with a lot of people who were racist. Even some teachers were pretty obnoxious when it came to racism. I ain't got a grippy enough doodah. Me doodahs. Need another something. Ooh. Look at that sniping shit there. Whoa. Let's go in this place. Fuck. I didn't see you. Fuck. No! Oh, you bastards. Oh! Fuck! Ah, fuck you. Lots of fucks. That I'll get monetised. Well, I never get monetised. I don't do this for monetisation. I think that monetisation. I think it's okay just for a slight top up, but I don't believe that people should have whole careers based on monetisation. The words there. Oh, there's a bloke there.
Stay. Guard the car.
Dune Drifter, we know of your deeds here. We smelly, dirty, unaffiliated sandbugs know you somehow got reason to mess with Warlord Scrota's caca. Accept our praise and hear me now. That big, recorded summary if you're looking to attack him, there's two.
Can't hear what you're saying because the storm's starting. Get on with it, you tit! Shit, fuck. Come on, Storm, get over it. Can survive this storm, but the trick is you've got to constantly changing your direction and get hit by a lightning. Come on, Storm, and you bitch. beep was. The beep. The beep. Yeah, I love my Kindle. Shit. I love my Kindle when it's not doing weird stuff. Oh God, not this bloke again. Jesus Christ. You get these people who put tweets that are weeks old. Jesus Christ, I won't leave you alone. I got my 27th point in argument with your point. What? I don't care anymore.
Certainly, yes.
Oh yes, Sargon didn't do anything wrong.
We know of your
Yeah, okay
The
then.
smelly, dirty, unaffiliated sandbugs know you somehow got
Oh,
reason to mess with
Sargon's
Warlord
nice,
Scrotus
so he
Kaka.
wouldn't hurt a
Accept
fly.
our praise. And
Like
hear
you
me
talk
now.
like you know
At the
him.
camp, they call it Summerine. It's big time important to the Warlord. If you're looking to attack it, there's 2 entrances inside. Beware their belter though. When he starts yelling, they all mad.
Maybe my shadow banning's ended or something. I don't know. I didn't know. Well, I got a lot of likes for what I said about Dave Rubin, who I've gone completely off. Dave Rubin did his show. He sort of prided himself on being sort of right down the middle. Oh, I don't take sides and all that. And then he had that absolute pile of dog fucking shit, Dennis Prager, on his show, and he it wasn't any sort of, you know, oh well, maybe you're a bit of an extremist or anything. He was talking to him like he was just a normal bloke. I'm like, fucking Dennis Prager, are you fucking serious? That bloody right-wing piece of shit. The one who puts out videos denying global warming that are just the most ridiculous. They make Alex Jones stuff look like, you know, hard science. I think the funniest he put out recently was a video saying about carbon dioxide, that carbon dioxide's our friend and it helps our environment come out the ice age. I'm like, no, you're talking crap there, Dennis. Oh God, Dennis Prager. And I was like, fucking hell, why are you kissing up to him? Why don't you give him a fucking hardball question? It's like Roman Millennial. I was slightly fooled at first by Roman Millennial. That, you know, her being a nice person, there was slight sense of forgiveness that, you know, maybe I'll not. I let my guard down when it comes to skepticism, but she's just so, she's got milk toast, you know, and she's literally opened a door now to loads of these non-argumentative skeptics who will, well, I'll do these videos in future and the right wing will know that they've got some mug who will basically not give them any hardball questions at all, just sort of the soft soap it's a shame really, because she is a nice girl, but she's just so weak. You know, if you're going to be doing, if you're going to interview people like, particularly that piece of shit bloody Richard Spencer, don't be giving him soft questions, give him the hard questions, because, you know, you might as well just not bother. That's also, well, like I was saying about Alex Jones, it's my biggest problem with a lot of the online commentaries on pretty major political stories. People like Donald Trump getting these easy passes because the people interviewing them aren't actual proper journalists. They're basically people who've got a webcam, you know, and it's not the interviews they do aren't genuine. They're sort of like soft on the facts. How do I get in there then? I just have to go around. Oh, I see. You know, and especially now there's things like Patreon for some of these channels to continue. Some of them are beginning to put out content I noticed recently that is sort of questionable. Like they're putting it out not for positive reasons. They're putting it out to gain attention, clickbaity stuff. I've always found the clickbaity stuff to be a dangerous game. It's like well, like I was saying, Alex Jones put out a claim that America was going to war with China. World War III was starting. The nukes are flying. And I was like, if a regular news channel put that out, they would probably have members of the people owning the channel would either be having to explain themselves in a courtroom or facing some severe fines. But the problem is with the internet, it's a double-edged sword because the internet's not policed. So, you know, and YouTube, I take my hat off to YouTube that at least they do make an effort sometimes with the policing of content, but it's such a sort of, it's an automated system and it's not very reliable, and you know, you can have people getting away with extremely sort of horrendous videos. Well, just look at that Daddy05, whatever the hell he's called, jerk, who was basically making money off of torturing his children. And then you've got characters like Keemstar, who basically just seems to make a career out of being a bit of a jerk. I haven't watched a lot of Keemstar. I've only watched bits of some of his shows, and it's one of those things like PewDiePie that I just don't understand what the attraction is. PewDiePie, he seems a nice bloke, but I don't understand the big hoo-ha. You know, it's like Eminem. I never understood why Eminem, everyone was raving and would call him a genius and all that. I was like, he's a white rapper. It's just, you know, I'm sure there's an appeal somewhere, but I don't get it myself. But I've never really considered rap music to be anything but a sort of well, I find it pretty weak. I don't find it it's a little bit like DJing. It's one of those things where you sort of think, well, why is this considered something genius? You know, poetry has produced clever works, but you know, it's not generating the sort of money that rapping does. And rapping, all it really is basically a form of poetry set to a beat. Oh, where's this last bloody thing? Put the thing on the thing, and then move the thing from the thing. Princess Bride reference. My name is Andeo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Actually, that's one of my favourite films. I just wish that I looked like Carrie Elwes. I can't pronounce it. He's a really good looking guy. I'm running past the bloody thing. Where is it? I bet it's somewhere really stupid. Bridge boy, me. There it is. Bloody thing. Yeah. What's that done? Just gonna get the car. Get the car. Get in the car. Ooh. Right, where's my home base? Jeet. Get back to Jeet. Oh shit, it's a bomb! Fuck. I thought that was the booster and it wasn't, it was a fucking bomb. Who fit? Is everything nearby? That's what I want. I want to spend some on the upgrades. This is a pretty game. Pretty in its ugliness, if that makes any sense. Should I do another reaction to a Steve Shives video? Let's have a look what he's done recently. Usually it's rage inducing. Let's have a look. These guys. Videos. There we go. Such an ugly little toad. I don't understand it either because, you know, he's done videos in the past that are... I just don't get it. I don't get how someone can be as happy as he was back in 2011 and become this miserable bastard he is. Oh, this will be amazing. 5 things to be aware of about mental illness. Let's hear the lecture.
May is Mental Health Month, a time for raising awareness and educating ourselves in order to erase the stigma attached to mental illness. So with that in mind, here are 5 things to be aware of about mental illness.
Right.
Number 1, it's more common than you might think. Here in the United States, 1 in 5 people...
Oh God, he's doing his butthole mouth thing.
25 experience a serious mental illness every year. And about half of us will experience some form of mental illness at some point in our lives. It costs Americans nearly $2 billion in lost earnings every year. It's the leading cause of disability worldwide, and it's a contributing factor to 9 out of 10 suicides. And yet there remains an undeniable stigma attached to it. Mentally ill people are stereotyped as volatile.
Where, Steve?
Despite that stereotype,
So, mate, this is what really gets me about Steve Shives' videos. Like, a lot of SJWs who claim that the world is basically like it was 15 years ago. When I was a teenager, there was stigma attached to mental illness because I suffered with depression. But not now. My workplace, it's extremely clear in my workplace that if you've got a mental illness problem, the company has to help you. You know, if it's something like long-term depression, they have to help you because they literally bent over backwards when I was having, it wasn't much a breakdown, but I was extremely depressed about the death of my father. And they showed me some kindness and put me on less stressful hours. But the way Steve talks about it, it's still it's the 1980s still, when people with mental health problems are sort of stigmatised or put in lunatic asylums. But yeah, he's a bit of a fucking idiot here. I'll just get the car in the right place and then...
Lie low here.
Of course I will. If you have to leave me here.
Oh, let's see.
People with mental illnesses aren't dangerous. Popular culture does
What?
mental illnesses, frequently depicting them as seriously disturbed and violent. The truth is, the overwhelming majority of violent crimes, between 95 and 97%, are committed by people who are experiencing mental illness. Research shows that incidents of violence among people with mental illnesses
Oh, thanks for telling us this, Steve. Oh, well, here we go, the patronising stuff. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, when, Steve? When? Back in the 1980s. Oh, of course. This is the real story. Steve's white guilt. Oh, right. Okay then, Steve. Don't call us folk. I hate the folksy bullshit. Isn't it nice to be patronised by a big wormy twat? What? Where? Oh, so Whitey helped men with mental health services that black people don't get. Yeah, okay, Steve.
Health plans and some forms of Medicare and Medicaid were exempted from the law mandating mental health therapy. And in states that did not participate in the ACA's Medicaid expansion, nearly 20% of uninsured adults experience mental illness. If that made it into your pension, how about this? From 2008
Kill it!
Not on your Nelly, Steve. I'd prefer to give my money to mentally ill people than give it to you. You're an absolute shit show. Your obvious white guilt. Well, it's not just obvious white guilt. You've got you're patronising twaddle sounded more like a judgment of people with mental health issues than actually those suffering from them. You know, maybe you should look to your own before sort of telling other people that they should that they should not do what you do what you say. Obnoxious little cunt. Well, I'm gonna stop the stream after I've killed this fucker. Because I just noticed there's a show on here I want to watch. I don't want it blaring away into the microphone. Right, how do I do this? I will hopefully see you soon. Because I'm really knackered and I want to just listen to this thing and then go to bed. So I'll see you when I see you. If I haven't gone